Morning, everyone. I just wanted to share with you some practical strategies that might be able to just be implemented quickly and simply, and talk you through a journey which we've been on over the last few years, which actually helps support both staff and students in developing consistency in our practice and provision. So to start off with, how did we get to this journey? Most of our staff, when we spoke to them, spoke about how do I start that conversation? Sometimes I feel daunted around what questions to ask. How do I build up the profile? How do I know that I'm touching on the right areas? So to make life straightforward, we adopted and delivered training to all our staff on the resilience conversation. That quickly identified the 6 key areas where they were feeling secure: those friendships, talents and interests, education, emotion and behaviour, and health. In using the resilience conversation as a structure, but highly flexible way of talking with young people about their overall well-being, this helped our staff to quickly develop ways in which to build up a profile, and then also work with different areas within school life. So whether that be looking at some of the support groups we have, whether it looked at cross-curricular and linking up there, or whether it linked up with our wellbeing or pastoral teams to then look at how do we develop not only the support but the collaboration between staff. So looking at how do we embed the support within our setting, and also then look at those referrals if needed to external services. The resilience conversation with the use of the wheel, where students rate the different sections, whether it be red, amber or green, was also useful because we were able to identify where their priorities and where the intervention needed to occur on a scaled level. So where was the focus for that student with the implementation of support immediately, and where were we going to then target to then develop the plan of working on that tiered level? Was it one particular focus? Were there multiple areas? And it also allowed us to go back and review over time. So in being able to go back and review over time, were we seeing progress in different areas and seeing that shift? And also being able to go back and revisit the conversations and building up that profile. It was quite visual for the student to see where progress was being made, even though sometimes they don't necessarily instantly view how they're feeling and their emotions match that journey. In using the wheel, we either use the wheel as it is on the screen there, or we have also developed it electronically into our pastoral profiles for our students. So as students come into different U groups, our tutors have electronic profiles which they build up with the young people as part of their induction process. So again, we use it in different formats. Why the resilience conversation matters: ultimately, we want to improve attendance at school. We want to have that integration socially, which prevents any anxieties and friendship issues. We want to engage in the learning so the student is meeting their full potential and feels fully supported and has the right intervention at the right time. And ultimately, it is developing that whole approach around the student to make them feel fully supported and comfortable and safe within our learning environment. So there was our key goal and motivations. So how have these conversations supported our students? It helps them build self-awareness. So when our students reflect on areas like friendships, health and emotions, they're able to understand what affects them and where they can grow and how we can support that. They highlight strengths, and ultimately sometimes we get focused on the negative rather than looking at the positive. So if we can highlight strengths in areas where the young person is actually showing some real signs of success, and then linking in some of the strategies, linking of that into some areas where we're continuing to set goals and work with. Identify early warning signs. So again, if we connect this with some of the ACEs for adverse childhood experiences, we can use those coloured coding to make sure we get that early intervention and pick up on anything as quickly and promptly as possible. With the early help and warning signs, we are able to spot and put intervention as quickly before it escalates, and being as proactive and looking at being proactive rather than reactive is our key aim. And using this wheel really helps that. It allows for our staff and young people to work together so that they have that action planning. So whether it be our housemaster mistresses, our tutoring teams, or our pastoral teams, ultimately it is making sure that those groups are working together and that action planning is clear and consistent, and that ultimately the student voice is being heard and that the planning is led by the young person. As we've gone through this journey, we've also been able to look at how key points within our setting can help. So how can we really make that conversation as effective as possible, and when and how do we implement that for the most effective outcomes? So at that transition point, so when students come into Year 7, if you have mid-year joiners and if you have students moving between key stages, it's really useful to have those conversations. Ultimately, with the in-year students, it's making sure that they feel settled and supported in that transition. Ultimately, it can be challenging because they're coming into a year group partway through, and so they're having to settle in, adapt to new routines, but also break into friendship groups that have already been formed. And obviously with the Year 7 intake, our students, we don't necessarily know what primary schools or have that relationship with primary schools because they will have come to us from nationally and overseas. So ultimately having that conversation as early as possible with our tutoring teams and our house teams, make sure that we get that intervention and build that picture and profile as promptly as possible. Building that student relationship, ultimately having that tutor be able to build that picture of the young person, be able to understand their background, what their likes, dislikes, how they can best support them, and ultimately that builds that relationship, builds that trust, and also in their reflection and in their reviews with the young person, they're able to have some meaningful dialogue. The pastoral and mentoring, ultimately, instead of it just being focused on academic goals outcomes, it is the whole individual. So meaning that we're looking at the student wellbeing as a forefront, and then the wellbeing and that young person being then supported both socially and emotionally, and then the academic. Different targeted groups. We can use the profile and the areas within the profile to then discuss with the young person whether some of our targeted intervention groups would be a route to go as a way to help them move forward in their current struggles. We've also looked at different groups that we can put into place that match up with different areas within the resilience wheel. So we offer a range of in-school groups where we have specifically allowed staff to develop their skills, through various CPD methods. So again, we're looking at building in school as well as just referring externally. Parental engagement, sometimes it can be quite difficult to start that conversation about what is going on at home, how we can have that home-school partnership, and by using the resilience wheel to have that joint approach and looking at areas within school life and how we join that up with home and build consistency in routines, boundaries, expectations. And again, it allows us to have some support in place for parents, and we can also in that discussion provide some extra support and signposting for the parent as well as the young person. The pressures young people face today academically and with the social media relationships and wider uncertainties means that the schools must emphasise prevention and early support. The resilience conversation provides exactly that: early targeted support delivered in a safe, calm and structured way, and helping identify concerns before they become crises. Young people feel listened to, they feel valued and supported, and it allows their resilience to grow. The resilience conversation tool increases that sense of safety and stability, gives the language to describe their feelings, and helps them connect with the right support at the right time. These small conversations done consistently create a culture of emotional well-being which are embedded across the school. Resilience isn't about falling down, it's about being supported and being able to get back up. By using the resilience conversations tools, we give young people not just support for today, but skills for lifelong. Thank you.